Hi guys, this week we're going to talk about, well, the title of this week is Good, Bad or Boring. And we're going to take a mathematical bent this week about how to become a great writer, or how good do you have to be to sell a screenplay? How good do you have to be as a writer? I'm going to put a bell curve, a mathematical distribution curve up here. And the way they work is if you've got 100 people and you measured their heights, there'd be a couple of really tall people down one end, and there'd be a couple of really short people down the other, but most people fit into the middle. And if we look at that distribution when it comes to writing, when it comes to our skills and abilities, there is very, very few writers in the great end and very, very few writers at the terrible end. Most people have some sort of command of the English language. They've maybe read a screenplay or seen a movie or something like that, and they move that into that centre part that I'll call the zone of meh, the who cares. This is, I know I'm sounding like I'm beating up on rules a bit lately, because last week's episode was me saying that rules don't exist. They're actually just commonalities. There'll be a link at the end of this in the card if you didn't see last week's episode. A great writer and a really bad writer are truly unique. They aren't like the people in the zone of meh. The great writers have a unique voice. They have a way of saying things uniquely. They do great character description, great action lines. They don't write like other people. Their scripts take an unusual twist. They go off onto a weird tangent maybe. They don't follow the standard beats of A Hero's Cat or Save the Journey. They have their own way of telling stories, and that's what pushes them down to being great. The bad people at the far end as well are just mad. They just tell insane stories. They tell it as a series of poems, or they actually don't have a character. They just have a group of people marching around, and this group becomes they just don't know how to tell a story. Their story has no start, has no end, has no meaning. It has an experience, or whatever it happens to be. Those people are delusional. As we come a little bit further and we get into the zone of meh, in the zone of meh, we'll hear questions like, well, I've got the people are very close to the crazy. You'll see those on forums when they say, and they're the ones that always, if you see the forum episode of this, they ask a question when people say, no, that's not really how the industry works, that's not how writing works. They come back with, but if it was great, they're never going to get out of the zone of meh, because their inability to learn, they're hoping. They're there for the wrong reasons. They're not writers. They actually need attention. They just want to be heard. They want someone to pat them on the head and go, oh, you're a good person. Fantastic. Oh, that's so right. Yes, you're 100% right. They don't actually want to tell a story. They've got this narrative in their head that they're great. And the more pages they can put down, the greater they'll appear. They actually don't want to learn their craft. They don't want to learn what it's all about. And then in the middle, you've got these people who do want to learn, but they start wanting commonality. They start wanting the safety of sameness. When you get a lot of notes, or if you start using a lot of consulting services, or whatever, you can do whatever you want. It's a free world. But they'll start telling you, most screenplays do this. Most screenplays do that. It's common for a screenplay too, and that is in that big hump in the zone of meh. Okay, like, what do you think of the screenplay? Meh. That's most things do that. Now for the maths. If we just look at Reddit, just Reddit, for the sub of screenwriting, there is 1.5 million people on the Reddit thread, subreddit, what I think they call them. When I first went there a couple of years ago, just because I love talking about screenwriting, there was 1 million. Another 500,000 people have signed up to the Reddit subreddit for screenwriting in a couple of years. So even if that's, you say the top 1% of writers get their work done, and we can pretty much guarantee that the subreddit doesn't have all the professional writers in it. So we'll say top 1% of amateur writers. So out of 1.5 million people, you've got to be in the top 15,000. So, okay, maybe that sounds a bit big. Let's chop that in half. So the top 7,500 amateur riders will sell something this year. So now you've got to be better than 99.5% of all the amateur screenwriters in Reddit. And that doesn't happen in the meh zone. What can you do to escape it? Well, focus on craft, not on learning what other people do. I've said it before, read scripts. Think of a story as people. Think what your story is really about. Don't worry about conforming to what it is or what you think it needs to be. What is it really about? Don't think of, will I impress people? I made a comment recently. Somebody said, is it too confusing to throw a lot of backstory? Yes, it is. Because if it's not to do with the story, it doesn't need to be in there. The rule of like start late, finish early means you don't put stuff in your story that doesn't need to be in your story. Your story should be a lean, mean fighting machine. It shouldn't make people scratch their head and wonder. They should look at it and go, I want more. I want more of this. So maybe the director, the producer says, can you stretch a bit here, add a bit here, whatever. But you can't sort of give someone something and expect them to slog their way through and go, oh, yes, I can see, I'll educate you. When there is 1.5 million people on the subreddit that they don't have to educate. The top 1% gives them 15,000 people they don't have to educate. The top 0.5% gives them 7,500 people they don't have to educate, that already understand story, already know what they're doing, are at the top of their game. And that's what you sort of have to be. You have to be on the top of your game. I've just realised there's a black thing. That's one of my cupboards. So that's it. It's a very, very short episode. Just I want to give you that mathematical thinking. The way I was saying, how good do I have to be to start selling my work? How good do I have to be to take this job seriously? You've got to be better than 99.5% of the other writers, which means you can't strive to be like them. You can't copy them. You can't use the same formulas, the same recipes, the same guides. A guide is a map. You don't want to have a map. You want to be an explorer. You want to go out and find your own land, your own ways of going where, new planets, things that are just you. And if things are just you, people will fight to get them. A few years ago, it became very, very popular. A saying by the experts, you'll hear it on podcasts and stuff, is write what you know, write your story. No one can be a better version of you than you. That's gone out of favour now because everybody said it. But maybe it needs to be said again, okay? We can't write a story about you. I'm the most boring person on earth, okay? I'm a white guy in his 50s living in the Western Hemisphere. I am like water. I cover so much of everything. The film industry is full of people that look just like me. So writing what I write is writing what everyone else writes. I have to write more interestingly. I have to write about experiences, people, focus on people, and I've got to be better than 99.5% of all the other writers that stand a chance. That's it. Be unique. Don't strive to conform. Don't strive to be like everybody else. Stay away from the zone of meh. Okay? Try to be unique. It may mean that you end up over here in the bad part, and there's a little bridge under there. A bad writer with just truly unique just has to learn craft to come up here. A person who is not unique is in the middle, can learn all the craft, and they may drift down here, but they won't get to the end because being unique scares them and they won't take that chance. They'll rather stay in the land of meh and just mourn with everybody else. Why aren't I selling my scripts? Why is it taking so long? Why do I have to send out 500 emails to managers and none of them want to talk to me? I can't get an agent for love nor money. Why is there so many gatekeepers? Because there's 1.5 million people in the zone of meh. That's this week's. If you'd be so kind, leave comments. It's really good. I've been getting a few comments lately. Subscribe, all that sort of stuff. And until next time, guys, keep writing. Bye.